My name is Jeff Bennett. I'm the CEO and founder of Morari Medical. My background, I've got over 25 years of medical device experience. I started my career with a local company called Medtronic, where I was in the neuromodulation business. And that's where I got exposed to the technology of electricity solving or treating various different disorders or diseases. I then went on to another company and spent 4 years in urology. And that's where I got exposed to sexual health and medicine and some of the unmet needs that exist. And one of the crazy ideas that I had when I was working in this urology company was some sort of wearable patch that guys could use to delay an ejaculation. And I sat on the idea for years and didn't really do anything on it. But eventually I talked to a urologist about the idea, and he said, Jeff, that's a brilliant idea. He said, more importantly, do you understand how big of a problem this is? And I said, well, I'm one of the 70% of guys that want to last longer. And he's like, that's my point, is guys don't talk about this. And I, as the physician, don't like to bring it up because there's not good treatment options. So that was kind of that aha moment for me to say there's an opportunity here really to address an unmet need that has existed for many years and hasn't really received the attention that it does. So I'm not going to steal Jason Dean's thunder about the prevalence of premature ejaculation, but that's a little bit about myself. And we're at the point right now, an exciting milestone with Morari, where we've got a working prototype. We've got product built, ready to go through design verification testing. And very soon, or later this year, we'll be submitting to the FDA. So we're looking to raise additional funds to get us to that point, and really appreciate those on the phone call that have invested. Or if you haven't invested, this is your opportunity to learn more about the company and ask the experts who have invested and have spent time in this area. So with that said, I'm going to hand it over to Jason Dean, who can introduce himself, and then we'll have John Holcomb introduce himself as well. But thank you again.
Hello,
Jason?
hi. Hello, so I'm Jason Dean, and I'm a psychotherapist based in the UK. I work with a range of mental health issues, including anxiety and fears and phobias and depression. But over the years, I've tended to work mostly with male clients. That wasn't really a plan, but guys often reach out to a male therapist. So in my conversations, male sexual difficulties often present. So this became a bit of a specialism. And I've put out some help resources and a YouTube channel, and it's led to more work and referrals in this area. So I'm a kind of all-rounder psychotherapist, but this has become a sort of specialist area of interest for me.
Thank you, Jason. Okay, John, we can't hear you, so I'm going to go ahead and go through some slides and maybe just check on your side. Can you hear me? Give me a thumbs up if you can hear me, John. Okay, yeah, we can't hear you. So I'm gonna flip through some slides here, then we'll come back to you. So maybe check your settings there. So we wait for John to go through that. I'm just going to go through a few slides with regard to Morari here. So again, Jeff Bennett, CEO and founder. We're all about sexual health and wellness. And when you talk about sexual health and wellness, there's multiple different unmet needs that exist out there, whether it's premature ejaculation in men, erectile dysfunction. On the female side of things, there's issue with painful intercourse, trouble with orgasm. But we've decided our first product into this industry, rapidly growing industry, is a product for premature ejaculation. And why? Why is that? Well, it's just the size of the market and the fact that there's been no innovation in this area for over 20 years. Jason will speak to this, I'm sure, when he talks, but 30% of men suffer from premature ejaculation. And in addition to that, there's another 40% that don't meet the clinical definition, but are looking to last longer. So all total, that's a very, very large market opportunity. And from a technology standpoint, we believe we've got a great platform that can really serve to solve and help those men and couples that are looking to last longer. So the sexual health and wellness market, if you haven't been tracking it, it's growing like crazy right now. And in fact, you can actually go to Target, Best Buy, CVS, and purchase sexual health and wellness products. There on the upper right, I show a picture of a Target, our Target store, where on the shelf you can buy vibrators, lube, penis rings. So society, I think, has gotten to the point where it's beginning to be okay and comfortable talking about sexual health and wellness, which really poses great opportunity for us as a company as we get into the sexual health and wellness industry. So a quick overview, I'll show a demo of this in a second, but what we've developed is a chemical-free wearable patch that uses neural stimulation or electricity to delay an ejaculation. The patch is worn during intercourse, It's placed in what's called the perineum. The perineum is between, if everybody can mute their call or their line, that would be great. Thank you. So the patch is placed in the perineum between the scrotum and the anus. Some people call it that taint. Some people call that the gooch, but that's where the ejaculatory nerves combine before going to the brain to trigger an ejaculation. And this patch is controlled via a smartphone app. Everybody responds differently to neurostimulation. What works for me is going to be different than it would be for John or Jason. And what the app allows you to do is really customize those settings for your comfort and your desire. So in a summary, that's what the More patch is. And we introduced the brand name More. Our product name is More, M-O-R. We introduced that last year at the Consumer Electronics Show. Had a great reception to that. In fact, back in January of last year, Jimmy Kimmel made fun of me and the company in a fun way for 1 minute, 46 seconds in his monologue. So I think that's just one more example of society embracing and making it okay to talk about sexual health and wellness. And the idea behind the name More is I can't tell you what your more is. I don't know if you want more time. I don't know if you want more intensification. I don't know if you want more communication with your partner. We're going to give you a technology platform that you decide your own more and have fun with it with your partner. Figure out and have fun and play with these different settings. And then what we're here today to do is really talk about a crowdfunding opportunity. And to date, we've raised over $520,000 from 155 investors. Many of the investors are on this call, so thank you very much for that. And we plan to close this crowdfunding campaign on March 9th. So there's an opportunity, if you haven't made an investment, to join us and the opportunity to go out there and literally change the lives of millions of couples worldwide. In total, we're looking to raise a total of $1.5 million. That will get us through FDA clearance, that will complete product development, and that will get us launch ready. So we're very excited about the commitments and those people that have trusted us thus far. And we're looking forward to many others joining us in this journey. So with that, I'm going to do a quick demo of the product here before we hand it over to Jason. You could please
mute Jeff, can you hear me now?
Oh yeah, John, I can hear you perfect now.
Thank you.
So John, why don't you go ahead and give your intro first?
Yeah, great. And so as I was starting to say, after following Jason and Jeff, now that you've heard from the smart people, I'm just the guy who's looking for cool stuff to invest in. So I had a chance to meet Jeff through a course of meetings in the Twin Cities and got introduced to Morari. And I got to know Jeff and the team, and I'll talk a little bit more about my rationale, but my background, my rationale for investing. But my background is I spent 18 years at Target in the retail pharmacy and clinic and healthcare businesses. Really got to understand a lot about the consumer, the changing consumer behavior. After leaving there, I spent 6 years at United Healthcare, leading the health and wellness business. So really got to learn a lot about what people are looking at in the health and wellness space, as well as chronic condition management. And since leaving there, I look for cool investments, opportunities to invest in startups and work with those companies. And I'll explain a little bit more about that, which is, well, I should say one of the reasons you see a giant eyeball behind me is one of the companies I'm working with right now is in the eye care space. And so always looking for cool, innovative companies to work with and invest in. So I'm happy to be here and looking forward to the questions at the end of the call.
Thank you, John. Appreciate that.
Yep.
Okay, I'm going to go through a few pictures here. Some of these are fresh, hot off the press, giving you a little sneak peek behind the curtain as to where we're at in some of the testing. But Jason, John, can you confirm that you can see the patch on the screen for me?
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, perfect. Yeah. So what you see here is the final version of our, before it goes into testing, of our patch. And this right here is the receptacle that a reusable pulse generator goes into. And the blue material that you see is a flexible material that on the backside of that attaches to the skin and has the electrodes that deliver energy. And I'll show you that more in a second. And here's the backside, which has release liners that under which are the electrodes that deliver the small amounts of energy, but also a mild adhesive that holds this to the skin. And we've been working with a local company here that's an expert in adhesives to find that adhesive that's strong enough to hold it in place, but gentle enough that when you take it off, it doesn't hurt like a Band-Aid would. And here you see a number of these patches produced. We are weeks away from going through what we call design verification testing. Because we're delivering energy to tissue, we need to get FDA clearance. And part of that clearance is testing the product to make sure that it's safe. And that's what we're doing right now is we're building up product. And here's what you see is some finished product ready to go through that design verification testing. The pulse generator is reusable and rechargeable. and it's very small. So this is a picture of our lead engineer with a pulse generator in his hand, and that just clips into place into the single-use patch. This is reusable, and then the patches that I showed previously are single-use. For those that might be familiar with a technology called TENS, or transcutaneous electrical nerve stimulation, that's what we're using as a basis of our platform. This is what a TENS unit looks like if you go to the store and buy one. Electrodes and wires are attached to this, and electrodes can be placed to your body. But look what we've done in order to miniaturize our TENS unit. And this is wireless. There's no wires that are needed. It just simply clips to the patch. So a lot of progress and some great engineering by our product development team. And here's a number of the pulse generators that have been built as we prepare for design verification testing. So we know the technology works, we know we can build them, and we know that we can actually manufacture them at scale. And what you're going to see here is just a quick 5-second process, because we can't share too much on this, but this shows the process that we've developed of actually automating the manufacturing process of the patches. All the work that we've done so far have had to be hand built, but now we have confidence that with our manufacturing partner, we can automate this process to build millions of patches down the road. And then a big part of this is testing. So here's our pre-design verification testing, where we actually subjected the pulse generators to water. We know during intercourse that the perineal area is wet, sweaty, all kinds of lube baby down there. So we need to make sure that the pulse generator doesn't leak. And this is one of the tests that we'll be doing formally to show that you can get this wet and not cause any problems from a leakage standpoint. So that's a little bit of peek behind the curtain, if you will. A lot of progress, as I mentioned, has been made already. We're very excited in the several weeks coming up to go through formal design verification testing. That means we would have frozen the design, and then we're going to do the data or testing to get the data to submit to the FDA. So depending upon FDA approval, et cetera, we plan to be on the market and have FDA clearance by the end of this calendar year. So very, very excited about that. So real quickly, before I hand it over to Jason, is I am going to show you how this patch works on my hand. So here's what you see is the patch. Let me see, I'm missing a component. This is the single-use pulse generator. I'm not sure, you can see that there's a blue light on. So there's the pulse generator, very small. And here is our single-use patch. So all you do is this pulse generator clips into a receptacle that is very much like a ski binding. So if I clip that into place, you can see that it's attached to the patch. And I can simply take it off. And after an ejaculation has occurred, you would take the pulse generator off, and then you would throw away the single-use patch. The pulse generator itself is reusable and rechargeable in a charging workstation. But if I take the patch and show you the back side of it here, I'm going to remove these release liners. Forgive me here. And there, what you're going to see are 4 electrodes. These 4 black patches are electrodes. And when I put the pulse generator into the patch, it would be applied to the perineum. But what I'm going to do is put it on my hand. And what you're going to see here is that it's affixed to my hand. And as I move my hand, the patch is flexing so that it stays in place and that those electrodes have good contact to the skin. That's very important because we're delivering this electrical energy that inhibits temporarily the nerve signals from the penis to the brain. So we really need a good adhesive. We need really good electrodes. And most importantly, we need this pulse generator here to be able to deliver that energy. So again, very quick demo, but hopefully effective. And then when you're done, when you remove it, it comes off very easy. So unlike a Band-Aid where you experience that pain, you don't have that with the Morari patch. And I can put it on my forearm, which has some hair on there, and it doesn't rip that hair out. So we've tried to find that balance and that blend of strong enough to hold to the skin, because if I put this on my hand, I can move my hand and move it all around, and that's staying in place. So we recognize there's a lot of movement happening down there during intercourse, and you need to make sure that you have something that's conformable and flexible, which is what we have here. So with that, I'm going to stop talking, and I'm going to turn it over to the experts, and we'll have Jason Dean, who's a therapist from the UK, speak to us about the prevalence of premature ejaculation as a therapist, what impact it has on couples, and then maybe some of the different treatment options that he's used currently, and why he's excited about what we're working on at Morari. So, Jason?
Sure. Yeah. Just a very quick run through on those points. So, as we saw on Jeff's slide just now, it's estimated that around 30 to 35% of men experience premature ejaculation to some degree. So this can range. It might be just some occasional distress and frustration at how long sex lasts for them, or it could be quite a debilitating condition, because when it persists, it can spiral into severe difficulties with intimacy, avoiding relationships, performance anxiety, low self-esteem, feeling less of a man. So it can be a pretty miserable experience and very problematic. In terms of the impact, I'd say that probably the most common scenario is guys are in relationships. Maybe they have a family, they want sex and they enjoy sex, but it's always mixed with fears and conflicting feelings, stress, worries about expectations of failure, feeling inadequate, etc. So it just makes sex a very awkward prospect for them. And so a significant part of their relationship suffers. And of course, this impacts their partners too. Couples often learn to muddle along to get by in longer relationships by sticking to routines that kind of get them by. But they're always sensing or wishing that things could be a bit better in this department. And in longer term relationships, of course, desire, that valuable commodity in a long-term relationship, well, it might well start to go away for both partners when this problem persists, because you can only desire something that you can expect to enjoy. Now, in terms of current treatment options, there is medication in the form of SSRI antidepressant medication, because this has a known side effect of dampening down our sexual response. So for men with premature ejaculation, that's a very useful side effect, and it can be moderately effective. But guys kind of face two options here. They can either be on a daily antidepressant, where they aren't necessarily depressed, and so they have the side effects of the medication and the potential long-term effects of that. Well, there is an on-demand version of these medications, and that's topoxetine, which is this stuff, but it's not FDA approved. And even if guys do source it somehow, or they live in a country where it is available, they often discover that the side effects of taking on-demand medication are even more intolerable. Then we have the numbing agents, the sprays and the creams and the wipes. So this is a lot more straightforward, and it can help to reduce sensitivity down there, but it requires quite a ritual before sex. It has to be applied, then guys have to wait for it to take effect, then they have to wash it off to avoid numbing their partners as well, and then they have to get to the sex before the effect wears off. So again, it doesn't come without its stresses and overhead, and it's not really optimal. And then behavioral training and sex therapy, which is my part in all of this. So for example, learning how to manage performance anxiety around sex, how to physically relax during sex, especially around the pelvic musculature, picking up sexual skills, building confidence, communicating with our partners, and sometimes even learning how to move in a more relaxed way during sex, because nobody really teaches guys that. And there are various devices and toys and gadgets on the market to sort of make this training more fun. Therapy and self-help and training, it can be very successful, but it depends on the individual factors. And we are aware that there is a genetic component to premature ejaculation, to how long guys last. And this can be quite deep in the neurological signaling that goes around the body. And therapy can sometimes only go so far to address this. So I guess what's exciting about the More device, from my perspective, it has the potential to gently modulate this neurological signaling more directly. You know, it can slightly interrupt the signals that set off the ejaculation reflex. And it can do this in ways that relaxation techniques and pelvic floor exercises and deep breathing just can't necessarily do. So there is, as we see, a little device involved, but it's free from side effects and it's free from all that preparatory overhead of numbing products and application. So coming at this as a therapist, I would see this as an adjunct to gaining sexual skills. You know, in overcoming premature ejaculation, I think skills are still key. And, you know, couples can only benefit from enhancing their sexual repertoire and relaxing into sex. But as any sex therapist, and 30% of guys will tell us, premature ejaculation can be a tricky issue. It's complicated and it's frustrating. And so I think the More device could be a really valuable piece in the puzzle here. And it's a piece that's really eluded us for so long. So I hope that gives you a helpful kind of overview from my perspective. And yeah, back to Jeff.
Yeah, thank you, Jason. Would you mind speaking to your experience with WeFunder? Did you know what WeFunder was? And you know, you made an investment via the WeFunder. What was that experience like? Was it difficult, easy? If you want.
Yeah, no, it was very easy. It was very easy. I mean, I hadn't come across the WeFunder platform before, but a very quick check of the credentials, I could see how, you know, it was secure and well established, and you know, there was a lot of funds had been raised on there very successfully, and it was a very easy transaction for someone who doesn't spend a lot of time investing in these things. So yeah, it was a no-brainer, really.
Perfect. And Jason, do you want to, you know, mention what your website is, so if people want to go and hear more about you? Because Jason, you know, speaks about premature ejaculation, but he also, you know, has a range of different options that he provides to his patients. So, where can people find more information about you?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Yeah, the best place is jasondean.co.uk. That's my main therapy practice site. And then there's a few informational pages on there and some links. And I also have a YouTube channel that's linked through on there with a bit more information about this topic as well.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
So John, I know, John Holcomb, I know you gave a brief bio on yourself, but maybe for those that maybe have joined late, a quick bio on yourself and then kind of your experience with evaluating an investment opportunity and more. But even more importantly, you know, how do you as an investor and an, you know, executive really look at opportunities for investments and make decisions?
Sure. Thanks, Jeff. So as a quick recap, my bio is I spent 18 years working for Target, leading their healthcare businesses and really understanding deep consumer behavior. From there, I moved to United Healthcare. I spent 6 years there leading the population health business. So really thinking a lot about health and well-being of members worldwide. And then ultimately moving into the chronic disease management. Left United, and now I've just been working pretty much full time with startups, looking for investment opportunities for myself, and then understanding how I can partner with companies in a wide range of industries. And so Jeff wanted me to share a little bit about, well, why was I an early investor in Morari, and sort of walking you through some of that thought process. And I know everybody has their own investment rationale, but I'll walk you through the rationale that I used. And so for me personally, I'm always looking for businesses that meet unaddressed needs, right, in spaces that typically large companies don't go after. And when you think about companies that are like Morari, that are creating solutions for emerging trends and sort of forgotten populations, it becomes a pretty interesting conversation around this space. You know, Jason Dean talked a lot about the needs of this population. I think for me, what's new is that people aren't afraid to discuss this. I think those needs are probably always out there, but people weren't taking the time to go talk to their clinicians or sort of look for solutions on their own. And I think this Morari product sort of fits as really interesting emerging trends of people becoming more okay with talking about things that they need, particularly from a sexual health and wellness perspective. And the solution that Jeff and team are creating is pretty darn innovative. Then I looked at, does it work? As sort of I'm walking through my hierarchy, does it work, and are the consumers likely to use it? And, I think Jeff's demo was great. Thank you, Jeff, for demoing it, because I think that sort of answers a lot of the questions, like how does it actually work? You mentioned it still has to go through safety, but, I'm looking forward to you guys getting through that. There's tons of videos on WeFunder. So when I'm looking through the how does it work, watch all the videos that Jeff and team uploaded, because there's a lot of cool information out there. And then I look at the extra, when I think about consumer adoption, Jeff and team have done an amazing job looking at and driving external interest in this company. And it's amazing you find a company like Morari, who's got exposure to Jimmy Kimmel, who's got in the 2-minute drill. The amazing, unpaid media impressions has got to be in the tens of millions, if not more, that this company's been able to generate. And you've got lots of testimonials from early adopters, as you see on the WeFunder site. Then I look at, well, how are you going to get this to consumers? So assuming it works and people like it and they're out there searching for it, well, how are you going to get it there? You obviously have your mail order and specialty distribution channels. But as Jeff mentioned, you start to see a lot more of these products popping up at Target, at Best Buy, at retail, at significant price points. And so you start to see this evolving market space of, awareness by the retailers that demand is out there from their consumers in search of these types of products. And then you have to look at, well, how many people might buy it? So you start to think about the addressable market. If you look at the material that's on the WeFunder page, you've got 100 million men in the US, and you've got a real target market of almost 4 million people who are absolutely fit the criteria for needing this type of product based on the needs that they have as an individual or relationships and those types of things. So you've got a addressable market, a target market that's fairly significant. And then I looked at the financial model saying, okay, if all that works, then let's look at the financial model. And he's definitely got a razor blade. You've got your razor being the app and the device and the pulse generator, and you got your razor blades, which are more of the patches you replace on an ongoing basis. And then WeFunder, I thought, did a really nice job saying, if you invest, in Morari, you believe that Morari will be worth more than $7.9 million at some point in time in the future. And after going through all those check marks, I'm like, yeah, I can absolutely see why this company might, I believe this company might be worth that much or more in the future. And then on the management team, I think one of the things that benefiting by being here locally is I get to meet Jeff and have conversations. But I think as you think about the WeFunder platform, you have that same ability. If you look at all the people asking questions of Jeff, looking for clarifications, helping to really explain their own reason for investing and hearing from Jeff why they should, I think is a great communications channel that the WeFunder has that really makes you almost like you live next door to Jeff. And then lastly, I think, Jeff, you had asked Jason about WeFunder. I'd never heard of him personally. But as I got to understand from WeFunder, doing my research like Jason did, understanding the credibility of the platform, I actually see the role that they play. So when you're actually a small business owner, trying to figure out how do I create a network where I could meet potential and future investors in a way that they can invest in me that doesn't make a mess with my cap table and actually my ability to run the business. And WeFunder really just consolidates all those people who want to invest, small, medium, and sometimes large amounts into a way that becomes really business friendly for entrepreneurs looking to partner with lots of people to pull capital in to advance their product line. So I really got to understand a lot more about the role WeFunder plays as it relates into this entrepreneurial ecosystem. And so for me as an individual angel investor, that narrative I just walked you through checked all the boxes that I needed to check to feel comfortable in investing in Morari.
Thank you, John. Well said. And I can assure everybody that John does his homework. We've had several sessions back and forth where he was picking apart our financial model, challenging on assumptions, which is what we want, right? That's absolutely what we need. But John did a tremendous job doing that and still does. And that's what we expect from all investors is, you do your homework, because obviously we can't guarantee anything. There's lots of risks. And if you go to our WeFunder page, you'll have the opportunity to see disclosures and formal documents that we had to submit. So everything's out in the open for the investment opportunity. But John did a really good job of doing his homework and asking us the tough questions. So there were some fun discussions there, right?
Absolutely.
Well, good. So now comes the time for the Q&A session, and we've got a number of questions here that I'll go through. And one from Hani, I hope I'm saying that right. A couple questions, one of which is, can you speak to the competitive landscape? And I think Jason spoke to the drugs and the sprays and creams side of things. I'll speak to the landscape of what we're in. And we're aware of a company in Israel called Virility Medical. They're working on something very similar to what we're doing. The difference that I think occurs is that they're working on a single-use product. You purchase their product, it's used, you throw it away. Whereas ours is reusable, and we've got an app that the user can control settings with. I'm not aware of an app that Virility has, and I'm not aware of the ability for it to be reused. And then from a technology standpoint, there's just a philosophical difference in terms of the technology approach that we're taking in terms of what we're trying to target, nerves versus muscle, versus what they are. So, we expect other competitors to be in this space. This is $1 billion plus market opportunity. There will be others coming in this space for sure. And what we've tried to do is build an IP portfolio that tries to protect our technology as best that we can, both from a technology standpoint as well as from a design perspective. Our patch, the design of it, there's nothing like it that in the world. And we filed some patents on that. So from a competitive standpoint, that's one of our strategies, is to make sure that we've got IP in place. And we do have one patent that was issued back in July, which is very, very exciting for us. And we've got several others that have been filed as well. So Heidi, I hope that answers your question. But yeah, we're very, very aware of Virility Medical. And that's all I can say on that front right now. But we believe that we'll be able to be successful with a product like Virility in the market as well. Another question is, the pulse generator adjustable, customizable? So I think with that question gets to, are you able to adjust the settings with the pulse generator? And the answer to that question is yes, absolutely. We know that everybody responds differently to neurostimulation. Some people have more fat down in that area, and fat's an insulator, right? It insulates. So you need more energy to get through that fat to target that nerve. Some people have more skin hydration. Some people have more hair down there. We're not recommending that you shave, but you need to clip the hair in that rare area so that the electrodes stick. So with our product, unlike our competitive product out there, it is absolutely customizable. You determine those settings, and it will take you a little time to adjust and figure out what settings work for you. And that should be part of the process. That should be the fun part of this. We plan to launch a starter kit, which will include 1 pulse generator and 6 patches. And we'll be very prescriptive on how to use those first 6 patches, because we want to make sure that you got the positioning right, that you're trying the different settings. And then once you found those settings that work for you and your partner, you can save those as a favorite, and those could be used each and every time after that. So a lot of customizability with it. And it's something that we're going to be very curious and watching closely when we launch. And what we want to do is create this online user community where people can go and compare and share their information in an anonymous way. Everybody likes to compare themselves to others for the most part, right? And who knew that tracking steps was going to be so addicting as it is right now? But if we can create this online community where people can go and say, here's the settings that I used, and here's what it meant to me in my sexual experience, that's a good learning opportunity and a community that we plan to build. So that is a big part of our marketing strategy moving forward. So I hope that answered the question, Hani. Have we filed any patents? What is the status on that? I mentioned that earlier. Our first patent was issued in July of last year. I just got notification of another patent that's been published earlier this week. So publishing is one step of the process of getting issued. It's an important step, but we've got another patent that's been published. And then we're very close, I believe, to getting our design patent on our actual patch. So yes, patents are a big part of our strategy, and we're fortunate to have a really good IP attorney that's got a storied history and experience in male and female sexual health. So another question. So this is a shaving blade type business model. Absolutely, yes. So I think John mentioned it. We consider this pulse generator and the app that we have to be the razor, right? This is a kind of a one-time buy. It can be reused, recharged, clean, and then the patches are your razor blades, right? After this is after an ejaculation's occurred, you take the patch and you throw it away. Now, many people are going to try to reuse it, and we can't prevent that. But what we do know is that if you reuse it, that tackiness of the adhesive and the electrodes just aren't going to be as effective as using a new patch each and every time. So our recommendation is use a new patch for every intercourse event. And again, the more times you use it, if you reuse it, you lose that ability for it to be as effective as intended. So yes, very much a razor blade business model. Whereas I mentioned before, our competitor, Virility, it's a one and done as we understand it. You use their patch, throw it away, no ability for customization. The business model, the go-to business model, this is a direct-to-consumer play. We're not going to have you go to the doctor to get a prescription or even visit a doctor. And we've already met with the FDA last year to go through our testing plan and our intended use. And they agreed with our intended use, and they agreed that it's an over-the-counter product and that we don't need a prescription. So we will build our own e-commerce website where people can go and purchase the product directly on the website, and it will be shipped discreetly to someone's home. And then we're also in conversations with other distribution partners. Ultimately, like any startup company, we hope to have an exit at some point in time. And we believe that exit would most likely be a acquisition by a consumer goods company. So that's all I can say on that. But that's a part of our exit strategy is acquisition at some point in the future at a reasonable level of return. We recognize that we're going to have to demonstrate some commercial success before we get that exit value that we're hoping for. So that's what the team is focused on, is getting the product to market, get some commercialization, continue to work with other companies that can help distribute the product, and then an exit can speak to itself when and if we get to that point. Anticipated price point of the product. So the pulse generator itself will retail for $299. And then the single-use patches will retail for $15. There's some margin in there, which will allow us to share some margin if we want to go down a distribution path, or if we want to bundle or discount. And what I can say about the pricing is we've done some pricing research with consumers, and then we also benchmark against other products. If you look at Viagra, which was launched over 20 years ago, each pill was $60 per pill, and it was going off the shelf. Today, there's other Viagra type products that are in that $20, $30 price point. So we believe those that have issues and suffer from premature ejaculation are willing to pay a premium. And that's why we've decided to make a pricing point of $15, which again allows us to get some margin and expand distribution options as well. What is the anticipated price point? We just talked about that. Can you tell us about our IP? We've talked about that. So I think those are all the questions that have come in. Anybody online have a question that they want to ask or something that wasn't clear? And one thing I'll mention back to the business model is, yes, it's a direct-to-consumer market. And we recognize that direct-to-consumer isn't easy or cheap. And this will very quickly become no longer a technology challenge. It'll become a marketing challenge. And how do we get that word out? But I think what we've demonstrated so far is our ability to generate massive amounts of media coverage without virtually any expense. So, getting a minute 46 seconds on the Jimmy Kimmel monologue, was free. We had no idea that was going to happen. We didn't pay a dime for that. An article in CNET, Men's Health, we didn't pay a nickel for that. We've talked to several reporters that have covered us or are interested in covering us that said, get back to us when you're ready to launch. We want to write about you. So that's free advertising there. Social media, we recognize there are some challenges, primarily with female pleasure companies getting approval to advertise on social media. Facebook recently changed their guidelines where they do allow for erectile dysfunction and PE ads. So we're going to try that. But also part of our marketing strategy is influencers. People like Jason and other therapists out there that have a large following that cannot endorse the product per se, but more talk about the unmet need and say, here's another opportunity. So we know that there are, people like Jason and that have millions of subscribers and followers and social media and YouTube that's a big part of our marketing strategy moving forward. One more question. Is there any impact on the partner? Good question. So yeah, so the patch is actually worn by the male. It's delivering electrical energy to that region. The partner does not feel a thing. It doesn't interfere at all. And part of the idea of putting it in the perineal area is that discreetness, so that you don't have to see it while you're actually having intercourse. So the partner doesn't feel it. Hopefully the partner just feels more intense pleasure because they're getting longer penetration and ultimately leading to more satisfaction. That's what we're hoping for. And part of that, part of what we're trying to do is also set that expectation. We expect that you'll be able to last longer with our product, right? But there's also that expectation that if you think that you're going to be able to be this marathon guy who's going to be able to get their partner to an orgasm, if your partner's female, might be a challenge because, from a physiology standpoint, very few women are able to achieve an orgasm by penetration alone. But lasting longer through penetration certainly helps them to that point. So there's a big part of the education that our launch strategy will include, as well as trying to set those right expectations. And we know it's not going to work for everybody. And part of what we're trying to understand is how do we manage the social media and the negative comments that are bound to happen with any product that's out there. Do we intend to build an online community and leverage network? Absolutely, yes. A big part of what we're trying to do is build that online community. The focus for the company thus far, and will be for the next several months, is getting the product tested and through the submission process. And then once we raise the money that we're looking for, we'll begin to prepare for launch. And part of that is having this online community, having those brand ambassadors, having the people that have used the product be out there and be vocal and help us spread that word. So a big part of this is word of mouth, as well as traditional type of marketing. That's all the questions I see in the chat. Is there anything else that anyone else has that I haven't addressed that you want to ask? Jason, any parting words from your perspective?
I think I was just considering that in the transparency here, in the messaging that you're providing, communications opportunities like this. You've got a very sort of personal approach to this brand. This kind of integrity and transparency, I can tell you, and you're probably aware, is quite a rare commodity in the traditional sort of male sexual help aids market. And a lot of guys and therapists are quite rightly quite cynical about a lot of the products that are on the market, promising things, as you mentioned, marathon man and overnight cures, and there's a lot of snake oil out there, and there has been for a long time. So as well as a refreshing innovation, I like the values at work here as well.
I appreciate that, Jason. And I think a big part of that for me is my medical device background. Spending 20 years in the medical device industry, it's very, very regulated. There's processes that you need to follow. You don't want a shortcut because A, that's not the right thing to do. B, it's going to hurt your bottom line. And C, you don't want the FDA or SEC coming after you, knocking at your door. So it's not to the extent that other products where they're super invasive and you need these large studies. We've got a very straightforward plan and agreement with the FDA on our process and plan to get to market. So we're excited that that path is relatively straightforward.
That's great.
Yeah, and then personally, for me, I mean, it's I've made it. This is my career moving forward here, right? I mean, it took me a while to get comfortable with, is this what I really want to do with my life? I didn't, go to undergrad or graduate school saying I want to be the CEO of a sex tech company. It just kind of happened, right? And honestly, I wish it would have happened earlier. But it is what it is. Jimmy Kimmel can make fun of me. I think at Consumer Electronics Show a couple of years ago, one of the reporters referred to me as the bravest but the strangest man at CES, and I'm like, okay, CES, there's like over 100,000 people, and if I'm the bravest, great, I'll take the strangest as well. And one reporter talked about my appearance being a Hogsworth professor with big dad energy. I didn't know what the hell a Hogsworth professor was. I'm not a Harry Potter guy, so I asked my daughter, and she said, "Dad, no, that's good. You don't need to be worried." So I am who I am. I'm available 24/7, 365. I mean, at my detriment, I guess. My wife's like, "Can you stop and stop for a while here?" But it's all consuming in startup world. But if there's anybody that has questions that you want to reach out to me personally, feel free. I'll send a follow-up message with my contact information. But at any time, any questions you have, I'd be happy to answer them. John, any last comments from you before we close?
Yeah, so I would say, I walked you through as an angel investor, the rubric that I use to look at companies and how, Morari for me fit those bills. I'm sure you have your own investment checklist, and I would just encourage you to go into that Morari WeFunder page and look at all the materials that Jeff's put out there. You can basically do the same due diligence I did when I was choosing to invest with all the data that's out there. And actually, he's got even more that I even had access to, because now you've got all the social media out there. He's got the financial pages in there. He's got a full pro forma in there. It's all there. And so I would just encourage everybody, as you're looking for cool stuff to invest in, to actually take the time to look at all the content that Jeff and team had put up on the WeFunder page.
I appreciate that, John. And for those that aren't familiar with WeFunder, it's a very straightforward, simple process. You have to create an account, but once you create that account, you can either put an investment on a credit card or wire the money in. It's a very straightforward process. The minimum investment is $200. And part of the value of crowdfunding, it's a relatively new investment opportunity. And I think it's a really cool opportunity for people that traditionally haven't had access to early stage opportunities such as Morari or many of the other startups. So now anybody, whether you're an accredited investor or not, can invest in the future of a company. And we hope that many of our investors are also going to be customers at some point in time, which is kind of cool as well. But for as little as $200, you can make that investment. Now, you can write checks as big as you want as well. And if you invest more than $25,000, there's certain rights that you get as considered a major investor. And if you have any questions about any level of investment, please reach out. But $25,000 or more, there's some other special access rights that you get there. So again, very straightforward process. WeFunder.com/Morari Inc. And it'll walk you through that process of setting up an account and making that investment should you choose. And we would welcome the opportunity for others to join us in this journey. So I appreciate everybody's time. And I'm just going to check and see if there's any other questions here. Okay, there's one more question, a quick question for Jason. You provided a helpful overview of the different types of guys with that 30% who have PE. How many of them would you estimate that is primarily a longer-term physiological condition?
That's a very good question. That's an excellent question. And to put it in very quick terms, we do look at premature ejaculation as a biopsychosocial issue, which basically means there are guys who are wired to come quite quickly. That is the genetic aspect. It's a familial thing. It's in the family. So that there is a physiological basis for this. And then that plays into a psychological aspect of it, where they then start to clock up perceived limitations in themselves and difficult sexual experiences, and they may have some bad sexual episodes, and they feel that sort of traumatized by that. So it builds up a psychological component. And then, of course, there's a social aspect to it as well, because it impacts their relationships and how their partners feel. They feel very alone with the problem. They're subject to the stigma and the embarrassment. So biological, social, and psychological aspects of this problem, and it can be all very chicken and egg. And I think every guy who experiences premature ejaculation has some mix of the three. They have their own sort of unique ratios of how they experience it. So in terms of it, it's very difficult to to pinpoint the exact origin and the exact cause in a lot of clients. From my own experience, I would very roughly say that maybe of the perceived 30%, maybe 5%, very roughly 5%, it has a predominant physiological basis. It's in their wiring. It's the way that their body wants to work. And there are still, as we've seen, there are still things that these guys can do to ameliorate that and to counter that instinct, but their body will always want to work that way, rather than maybe more of a psychological thing where a bit of relaxation and perspective can make a huge difference. So yeah, three key aspects to this that, again, make it quite a complicated condition at times, but it doesn't necessarily need a complicated solution. I hope that helps answer the question.
Yeah, I think that's great, Jason. And one of the interesting things that was brought up to me early on in this venture was, Jeff, do you realize what you're doing here? You know, there's no other species in the world that wants to ejaculate early. Everyone is about ejaculate. No, every other species other than humans want to ejaculate early. You know, we're just kind of wired to ejaculate early and move on, right? So we're trying to impact this normal physiological process. So guys that ejaculate early are normal, right? If there is such a normal with time. I thought that was kind of an interesting, consideration.
Yeah, there's a theory that there's even a kind of evolutionary advantage to getting the job done. So yeah.
But regardless, humans are the species that want to last longer, and we're excited about providing that. And one of the things that I hope to do is we message is, we've heard some feedback from guys in our market research is they don't want to be told, have a label of premature ejaculation. They know they ejaculate early, and premature ejaculation is just a definition. There's a medical, claim around that. Everybody's different, and what my time is going to be different than Jason and John, and some may want to last a minute or less than a minute. So it's really about what are you interested in, and that's what we hope to do with the more is what's your more. I cannot tell you what your more is. You can, only you can, but we're going to provide you a safe and we believe an effective way to experience your own more and have fun with it, because that's what sex should be all about, right? It's about having fun. So with that, I don't think we have any other questions here, but like I mentioned earlier, if you have any questions at any time, drop me a message, call me. No problem talking. Obviously, I love talking. I can do this all day. But I appreciate your time on this Friday morning, Friday evening, Friday afternoon. Jason, thank you. John, thank you. Enjoy your trip, John. Well deserved, and enjoy some warm fun and sun.
Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah, it was a pleasure. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.